Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. Oddly enough, I never thought in a million years I'd be making a video about what a French admiral has to say about Southeast Asia, but here I am. I thought of making this video after reading a recent tweet from Sebastian Folletti of Le Figaro on X under the title, French nuclear-powered aircraft carrier heads to Pacific. I urge those who are watching this, we'll put that up on screen. You can go check that out for yourself. But this quote was important. So basically the French are sending their nuclear-powered aircraft carrier over here, which my first question is, why? Is France in Southeast Asia or East Asia? But where is Tahiti at? Isn't that down in the Pacific somewhere? Maybe that's what they're out here for, but okay, whatever, they're coming. In any event, I thought of this, making this video because of the quote in here, and they're actually quoting the Rear Admiral, if you go in there, that is leading this, quoting directly, the 5-month mission is about, quote, protecting the status quo, unquote, and, quote, freedom of navigation, unquote, in a region that will become, and this I thought was an interesting turn of phrase and a very insightful one, quote, Barycenter of the world, unquote, Rear Admiral Jacques Mallard, commander of the carrier strike group, told me the word China is never mentioned, but it's the elephant on the deck. Well, you know, whatever, who knows. In any event, though, Barycenter of the world. So I went and looked that up. I was like, what's Barycenter mean? And I went and looked that up, went over to Wikipedia. I'll throw this up on screen too. In astronomy, the Barycenter or Barycenter of ancient Greek Baris, heavy, and centron, center, is the center of mass of two or more bodies that orbit one another and is the point about which the bodies orbit. A barycenter is a dynamical point, not a physical object. I thought that was interesting. It is an important concept in fields such as astronomy and astrophysics. The distance between a body's center of mass to the barycenter can be calculated as a two-body problem. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. It's like, this is sort of a force. It's not an object. It's the point at which the gravitational pull of the two objects are operating against each other. It's sort of the point at which if you turn two magnets on each other, you know, that are charged the same, they push against each other. It's that point that there's nothing physical there in the magnet analogy, but something's pushing back. With regard to this, it's the same thing, only it's the gravitational force. And I think that's a great insight by this admiral. And again, not so much from a geopolitical standpoint in terms of where we're sending aircraft carriers and things. Frankly, I think a lot of this stuff in the era of all this space-based tech, a lot of this stuff is like moving trebuchets around in Vietnam. I mean, it's kind of absurd on a certain level. But that observation is keen, is very, very insightful. It hits on a very discrete point, and that is the economies, if you will, of the West, the gravitational force of those economies are now rubbing up against each other almost like tectonically out here in Southeast Asia. And again, I think it's worth pointing out that this is a force, it's not an object. So when a lot of people look in on Southeast Asia and they say things about Taiwan or Hong Kong or down here in Southeast Asia, Thailand or Cambodia or Vietnam or any place, Philippines, this, that, and the other thing, they're not really looking at, you know, it's not so much a given country you need to be looking at, it's how they all interact and the various barycenters, if you will, of those interactions. That's what you need to be looking at. And again, rolling back, as we've discussed in other videos, Enbridge rolling out down here in Southeast Asia as the nodal points along the world island, or the outer rim, if you will, of what Halford Mackinder described as the world island. You got nodal points along Hong Kong, Bangkok, and then over in UAE that are going to be sort of the points of entry, in my opinion, for capital inflow and outflow, if you will, entrepôts of trade, if you will. Now you're seeing Enbridge rolled out, as we've discussed in other videos. BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, stepped back from that, and it's effectively, it looks like that particular little monetary carousel is now kind of running on its own. And again, it brings to the forefront the idea of this notion of a barycenter out here in East or Southeast Asia in terms of economic and geopolitical interaction. And I think that this phenomenon is only going to increase. I've done videos in the past where I talked about there being a Yuasa shift into East Asia, where basically the momentum of technological innovation moves. It basically has kept moving west for some years, and America has been, or the USA has been the primary beneficiary of that. In my opinion, that thing has jumped, and we've now seen that move over to, well, maybe not move over to East Asia per se, but I would say perhaps the Barycenter, if you will, of these Yuasa phenomenon is now definitely the Asia Pacific, and I think there's a very heavy amount of influence, if you will, of this Barycenter down here in Southeast Asia particularly. Long story short, I think the main places you're going to see a lot of economic dynamism, economic growth moving forward are going to be East and Southeast Asia.